Today we are going to make a exposed coil vessel, and you have some options about what you're going to make. The materials you're going to need are clay, canvas, something to scrape with, a card, a 3-inch template. I have these in my classroom. A knife, this is a fettling knife, a rolling pin, and then these are kind of thicker stir sticks. I get them at Sherwin-Williams, and they're a 1/4 inch thick. So you need 2 of those, and of course your notes. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you what you can make and our learning targets. So our choices are a jar with a lid. So here is my jar with a lid. Really cute. Love this choice. A mug. And these have glaze on them, but they're not glaze fired. A planter with a hole at the bottom, and I don't have an example of that with me, and then just like a small vase or container. Okay, so this would be a planter if it had a little hole there for the water to drain for the plant. Okay, so those are your options. And your learning target is you can make a vessel with coils that blend inside for a smooth texture. So we're going to talk about coils, and it's going to be smooth on the inside. I can make a vessel with exposed coil on the outside, including at least 3 decorative coils. So what that means is you have 3 different layers of a different coil each time. So it's not like you can have folds one layer and then spirals the next layer and then folds again. It won't count as a 3rd coil type. Okay, so a lot of students get confused about that. Make a vessel with either a handle, feet, or both. We'll talk about that. It needs to be able to hold water. It needs to be watertight. Of course, unless you put a hole in the bottom for the planter, so I would just put my finger over the hole and make sure that the rest of it can hold water, and strive for excellent craftsmanship. So let's get started. We're going to start with the base, and the first thing we're going to do is step 1. Roll out a 1/4 inch thick of clay using our sticks and a rolling pin. So I have my clay here, and I'm just going to wedge it just a little bit. Right? So we've talked about wedging a little bit in class, where I'm folding it towards or pulling it towards myself and then pushing it back down onto itself. Kind of hold it on the sides here, and just a little quick wrist movement, trying to get all the air that's trapped on the inside to come out. And then I can stand it up on its edge and do the same thing for a few times. Probably shaking the camera, sorry. Okay, there is my wedged ball of clay. And then what I want to do is I want to space these apart so that my rolling pin can roll on them eventually. So if they're way out here, my rolling pin can't roll on them. Okay, so they have to be able to be close enough. And I'm just going to slowly start squishing down my clay, and after I do this a little bit this way, I'm actually going to turn it a 1/4 turn and flip it upside down, and then do it again. Roll it a little bit, not a lot. Flip it a 1/4 turn, turn it upside down. And that way I'm stretching kind of in all directions. Getting a little wide here. Oops, flip it upside down. So I'm going to keep it this wide so I can roll, and I'm almost there. You don't need very much clay for this step. I kind of got a lot of clay. I'm going to flip it one more time. Roll it one more time. Great. Now I can put these materials back and get ready for the next step. So step 2, cut the bottom with the template. So I have a 3-inch template here, and you know what I want to do though before that? So you might want to put this in your notes. I'm going to take, oh boy, Miss O. Okay, I'll go over here. I'm going to take this. I'm just going to slowly scrape this. This is called ribbing, and they used to use something that looked like a rib bone from an animal like long time ago. But I'm just using this kind of gift card here and just scraping that flat. This compresses and condenses the clay. That makes the clay stronger. Okay, there we go. Now put this down. This is just craft foam that I made these out of, and I'm going to go around gently, keeping the knife vertical, and I don't want to tilt it because then I'll have kind of a tilted cut here. So I'm just going to go around like this, and if I get off a little bit, that's okay. Okay, and I have my base here. The rest of the clay, you always want to do this every time you're working with clay. Put it back into a ball. It keeps it wetter with more moisture on the inside. And if you're putting it back in the bin, you always want to put it back in a ball. That helps the next person. Okay, put my template away. Let's zoom in. Okay, so this is going to be the bottom of my vessel, and all of mine start with this same bottom here. You can see they all start with a round circle. Here's one here. Okay, so that's going to be my bottom, and then we're going to roll coils, and the first and last coil are always regular coils, not decorative. So this is step 3. First and last coils are always regular. So what does a regular coil mean? It literally just means a coil, right? Like you did with Play-Doh in elementary school or preschool. And so the way I like to start is with a log like this, and actually it works better on your desktop and doesn't work as well on the canvas. So I'm just going to fold this up and move it over a little bit and work on my desktop here. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to roll, and I want to make at least 1.5 full rotations. Okay, and I'm just kind of letting it go like this. I'm not pushing down with my hand, I'm just using the weight of my hand, and I'm going left, and I'm going right, I'm going left, and just keep going like that, and it's going to stretch it out. Now if you'll notice, mine is kind of flat, and it kind of bump, and if that happens, it's really common. You're just going to take it and twist the whole thing a little bit. Okay, you always want to get the most wet clay that you can, not sticky wet. You wouldn't want to just put water right on this. Okay, but it needs to be flexible enough to stretch. Okay, so once I get, I'm going to move this even farther away here. Okay, now I can use 2 hands and go from the middle out. And notice that I'm not just using my fingertips, and I'm not just using the bottoms of my palms here. I'm using the full width of my palm. I'm letting it really roll. Okay, coiling seems like something that you might have done as a young person, but it's actually somewhat difficult. Okay, and we want to stop coiling when it is about a little bit wider than a pencil barrel. So, you know, here's my pencil, and I'm talking about this width here, okay, this diameter. So you can see that's a little bit wider. Okay, so that's good to start with, and then I'm going to bring my clay back over here, and you notice there's no slip and score. Okay, so I am going to put this all the way around, and when I go back and meet the beginning, I'm going to go on top, and I'm actually going to cut it. Okay, and I'm going to go kind of go like this to show you. I'm going to be cutting through both of these at an angle. So I'm going to go from here, and I'm going to cut down that way. Okay, let me show you here, or let me do it. Okay, and then I'll take the top piece off and I'll take the bottom piece off. I need to cut a little bit more, but if I cut at an angle, they will meet better. Okay, and then I can just use my finger to smooth it out. Now this is what I call a regular coil. Okay, and you want to start and end always with the regular coil. The next tool that you'll need is your popsicle stick. Right? We made this DIY tool, and we are using an exposed coil method, which means you will always see the coil on the outside, but the inside needs to be smoothed together to attach it. And this is very, very important. So I'm going to take the clay and I'm going to put my popsicle stick about halfway or a little bit off the edge and actually push that material, that clay, down into the bottom. So I'm going to do that all the way around. Okay, now that is more attached than it was before, right? It's not going to just peel right off. Okay, however, one of our learning targets is that it's smooth on the inside, right? Like what if you're making a mug? That needs to be smooth. So then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to smooth all of this together. I'm going to smooth the bottom part first. And as I smooth the sides, I'm going to support it with my left hand here or my non-dominant hand so that it doesn't stretch out too much, okay? And I don't want to move on to the next step until that is blended and smoothed. Otherwise, it will fall apart even after it's fired, and it won't be watertight. So the blending helps it be watertight, because that's also one of our learning targets, that it can hold water. Okay, all right, now I'm ready for my next round of coils. And I want to show you this as an example. So this is where I am right here, and you're building from the bottom up. So we just did the base and then this coil, and then you're going to do a decorative coil, and I choose to do a regular coil in between my decorative layers of coils just to kind of make it be a little bit taller and also to make it be a little bit sturdy. So I'm going to do the next coil, and you can do any coil you want. So let's look at some of the coils options. So this picture is in your notes, but I wanted to call your attention to it. These are just different types of decorative coils, and they're all made with coils. And so you can see the top is fold, and it reminds me of that ribbon candy that I used to get from my grandpa. Over under, and I'm going to do that on my vase. Spiral, and then different kinds of spirals. The target, and then the target's cut in half, and it makes like an arch or a rainbow, and then cut again in half to make fourths. You can do squares, triangles, you can do braids, you can do twists. I would say if you don't know how to braid, this would not be the time to learn. Like, maybe skip that one, because you only need to pick 3 types and have 3 different distinct types in your vessel. You can also come up with your own. This is not the end-all be-all, but this is just kind of a place to start getting your ideas and being creative. So let's go back to making our vessel. Okay, so I think I'm going to do the over, under pattern. I just really like that. I think it's really cute. Here's over, under, over, under. So I'm going to take this coil that I've already rolled and use it, and then I'll roll a coil to go over, under. So this is going to be my little dots. So what I like to do is I like to take a little bit of clay and cut it from a coil. And then I like to use that as a template to cut all the other pieces from it. That way that I know that I have the exact same amount of clay that I'm using. Okay, so what I'm going to use these for is I'm going to put little balls here, make little balls, and then those are going to go here, right? And then I'll put my coil over, under, over, under. So let me make a whole bunch of little balls, and then I'll come back and show you the next step for over, under, over, under. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to roll a smaller coil, or another coil, I guess. And if you're having trouble rolling coils, it might be that you just have too dry of clay. So that's really something to keep in mind. And I'm not pushing, I'm just using the weight of my hand, okay, and really letting it slide and glide across the table. If yours is just a little too dry, sometimes I will just put a little bit of water on my hands, get my hands wet, and then it usually adds a little bit of moisture. Okay, so I want it to be just a little bit thicker than a pencil barrel for this next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over, under, over, under. So what that means is I'm going to go over this dot. See, there's over, and then put a dot here and go under that dot. And then I kind of have to do it this way. Pick it up, over that dot, and I'm just going to keep going round and round. And I'm kind of pressing the clay together as I do it. And so that's breaking and cracking. That's okay. I'm just going to leave it like that because we're going to blend it. Okay, and I've met up with my beginning. So I'm just going to blend it together. Now you're going to say, but Miss O, there are holes in between here. How is it going to be watertight? And you're exactly right. How is that going to be watertight? Well, I'm going to blend on the inside, right? So remember, I use my popsicle stick to blend. This time, I'm going to blend side to side, trying to cover those cracks, taking the material of clay and going and covering those cracks. If your coil is too thin, you're not going to be able to do this. So that's why you want to keep your coils a little bit thicker. Some beginners do a little too thick, some beginners get a little too thin. It's just kind of something you're going to have to experiment with, play around with. Remember, there's no shame in starting over or re-rolling a coil. And this step here is just for function when I'm blending. It's not for beauty, so I'm not too worried about how it looks on the inside yet. I will be worried about it for my craftsmanship grade, but not yet. I'm just getting it attached. And I'm trying to make it so that there's no holes. I can't see any light coming through. On the video, you guys are probably not at the best angle to see this, but I feel like I'm telling you with words. Okay, so I have scraped all of those together, and so there is no holes. Now you can see this one is kind of loose here, so I need to go back and push them together and scrape from the back side. We want to keep the front side or the outside still have that pattern, because that's what exposed coil means, is we see the coil pattern. This guy's having a little trouble too. Okay, what will also help keep these little top ones in is when I do another regular coil on top. So after I have blended inside with a popsicle stick, I'm going to smooth with my finger. Okay, so I'm just going to get those all smoothed in, because if the inside needs to be smooth no matter what you're making. Kind of like a cardinal rule in ceramics. And you see how I do this really methodically. Like, I don't put on another coil until I'm done with this layer of coils. Okay? I'm not using water. I'm not using score and slip. If they're falling apart, I'm pushing them or condensing them together. I'm holding behind as I blend if I need to add a little bit. Now, if there's a place where you need to add just a little bit of clay, like if the clay is just too thin, you can just take a little bit of clay and flatten it kind of like to a mini pancake. And if this is still wet and still plastic, I can just put that Band-Aid kind of right there. See, I put that Band-Aid right there. And then I can blend that in. That'll just give it a little extra thickness. And I can blend with my finger. So maybe I need to do that right here as well. So that's another technique you can use. So really we're just compressing, blending, smoothing. Smoothing with finger. So I can make this perfect, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to move on. You want to make yours perfect, okay? So then the next level, personally, I like to do just a regular coil to hold it all together, to make it big enough and tall enough, like for a mug or a jar or whatever, up to you. But you're going to build in this way, layer by layer of decorative coils. And you're going to have at least 3 layers of decorative coils, each with a different layer. So this would count for one type of decorative coil, which is like over under. If I do over under again on another layer, it's not going to count as one of my 3. So you can do it over and over again, but I'm going to make this and come back when I'm done and talk about the finishing up and step 6 and all that good stuff. So I wanted to come back and just show you how I make one of the coils, types of decorative coils, and this is an arch. So first I make the target, and then I cut the arch in half. But before I do that, I always blend the back. And so a lot of students struggle with this. If they don't blend the back first, they just put it on and then try to blend the back. It's so much more difficult. So you can see I made my little target, and then I'm blending with the popsicle stick and blending with my finger. And then I can keep it as that target, or I can cut it in half to make an arch. And I cut it in half to make an arch because that's what I like. But I make a few of these. You can see here's another one. That's what the front looks like. That was what the back looks like. And then I'm going to cut it in half. And now I have a piece that I can add to my vessel, and it just is so much easier. I still have to blend that back in and attach that back in, and so I'm going to do that here, but that's just a little tip from me. So I have finished building my vessel, and you'll want to check and make sure you have 3 layers of decorative coils that are different. So I have 1 decorative coil layer, 2 decorative coil layer, and this is actually a twist. So 3 decorative coil layers, and then I wanted mine to be taller, so I just added some regular coils. You could add more. If you want it to be really tall, you can. There's no height requirement. Okay, so now I'm ready to either add handle or feet or both. That is step 6, and so I'll show you how to do both. So you're going to take some clay and make a little bit bigger of a log for the feet. So this is for feet, and then you're going to cut 4 even sections. So again, I'm just measuring. And you can make your feet into balls. I've seen all sorts of different little ways that students make feet. I'm just going to do a simple foot, which is like a ball. So here's an example where the hair's 4. You don't really want to do, you definitely don't want to do 2. And 3, it's still kind of tippy. So you want it to be something that sits and is not tippy. So 4 is a great number, and you kind of put them on the outside edge. So if you want to do just a simple foot, a ball foot, feet, you just take the same amount of clay, roll it in your hands, kind of squish it down, and then I can slip and score them there. So I would use this to score both this side and this side and add some slip and push it down in. I don't actually want feet because I want it to make mine a mug. I just want a mug. So that's just what I want. So I am going to show you how to make a handle for a mug as well. So you're going to get some clay and you're going to roll a coil, and it is much easier to roll on, not on the canvas, right? So just start with a log. You guys know, right? Okay. And I have my log or my coil, and it's a little bit thicker than my regular coils. So it's more like the thickness of maybe a Sharpie or like a, a pen like this. Okay. And I'm going to get a little extra long here. And if there's any places like this, I can take my popsicle stick and blend it together and smooth out the crack because I want it to be smooth. And I'll bring back this, and I want it to be like a question mark. So cut this part off. I want it to be like a question mark like this, and then I want it to attach where the top of the question mark folds over, and then the bottom of the question mark hits the bottom like that. Okay, a lot of students try to attach it like this, and it's not very strong. Okay, so you want to fold the question mark over and then have it end right here. So that's what I'm going to do. And so let's see here. I'm going to just measure for a minute. You don't want the handle too far out because then the cup won't be as easy to use, and you don't want the handle too far in because then you won't be able to get your fingers through there. So I'm going to do about that, and we're going to fold this under. Okay, so then I'm going to look for the spot on my mug which is the least pleasant, I guess I would say, which I think is right here. Okay, and again, this part, the top part of the question mark, I'm going to fold and score there, and then the bottom part of the question mark I'm going to attach. So I'm going to attach it like this, like that. And so you want to score and slip both sides. So let me do that. And what I like to do is I like to measure where I'm going to score. So here I just draw a little line where I want to score on my pot, so I know where I need to score. And when we're scoring, we're getting deep down into the clay, roughening it up so it becomes like Velcro. And you do both sides scoring, and then you add a little bit of slip to one side. I take my handle and put the top on and the bottom on, and then I'm going to reach inside and press from the inside as well as the outside to attach. If I just pressed from the outside here and I didn't have my hand in there, it would cave in the mug. Okay, and then same here, if I can get my hand, press from the inside and the outside. And I can clean all this up here with a little paintbrush. If I have some water in my slip, I can kind of glue the edges together. Up here, make sure that that is really pushed in there and held together. Clean up any cracks. Now, if you're wanting to make a jar with a lid, right? How would I do that? Well, what I would do is I'd roll out a slab of clay, just like we did in the beginning, and I'd put this face down, and I'd trace around it. That way I know that it's the same size. Then, that would be this, I would put a coil in here. So all this is here is a coil set inside. Okay, and then this is just a coil handle attached. So that is also an option. And don't forget your initials on the bottom. And let it dry. Make sure the inside, I need to clean up that inside, make sure the inside is nice and clean. You might even want to run a little bit of a sponge in there to really get it soft and rounded. Everything should be completely sealed so no water can come out of it. And then we will fire it and we will glaze it, and hopefully you should see this in the classroom all done. Okay, so there is my coil demo for exposed coil. Really thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.